It's called The Games People Play Basic Handbook of Transactional Analysis by Eric Berne, MD. And I bought the book specifically for one section. This is in chapter 8, party games, under subsection 4, why don't you, yes, but, page 116. The characters are labeled in colors. So white starts, my husband always insists upon doing our own repairs and he never builds anything right. Black, why doesn't he take a course in carpentry? White, yes, but he doesn't have the time. Player blue says, why don't you buy him some good tools? White says, yes, but he doesn't know how to use them. Red says, why don't you have your building done by a carpenter? White, yes, but that would cost too much. Brown says, why don't you accept what he does the way he does it? White, yes, the whole thing might fall down. Yes, but the whole thing might fall down. Such an exchange is typically followed by a silence. It eventually is broken by Green, who might say something like, that's men for you, always trying to show how efficient they are. This game can be played by any number of people. The agent presents a problem, the others start to present solutions, each beginning with, why don't you? To each of which White objects with, yes, but. A good player can stand off the others indefinitely until they all give up, whereupon White wins. In many cases, she might have to handle a dozen or more solutions to engineer the crestfallen silence, which signifies her victory, which leaves the field open for the next game. And giving advice, because that's what it sounds like they want, or they even ask for the advice, but they just shoot down your advice. In years past, I used to get really frustrated with this, especially when someone you care about. Because someone you don't care about, you might give your advice and then you just kind of forget about the whole situation. Someone you care about, you start doing that. And later in that chapter, it goes on to say the way to beat this is to just simply say, so what are you going to do about it? That just stops the game, because instead of giving advice, and they can't shoot down what you're going to say, and you can't be accused of giving bad advice, you just say to the person, what are they going to do about it? And they can come up with their own plan. It might even go through the same set of things they just said, the same set of excuses, but at least you're not playing the game. The conversation can move on, because it's like a weird psychological thing where the person just wants to feel like they're in the victim mindset. And I found myself in that. Rarely do I find myself in this anymore. One time recently, a friend was talking to me about what I was planning to do with work. And I was kind of saying, I'm just going to quit with no job lined up and stuff. And she kept, we're playing that game. Like, she was trying to tell me that's not responsible. I'm like, well, it's fine because I have money saved. And this, we're kind of going into that. And I realized I shouldn't even have allowed the game to start. I shouldn't have even stated the problem. If I didn't want someone to chime in with advice, because I realized with communication with people, people always say, don't give advice that's not asked. But this game confronts that. By the person presenting the problem, it's not necessarily asking for advice, but you're putting it out there that there's a problem and people naturally look to solve it. We're just humans at the end of the day. If someone's presenting a problem, we think we know the answer, we're going to help. And that's how you get roped into the game. Like, I realize if you don't want advice, and most of us don't most of the time, we kind of already kind of have our plan. Only in desperation, I find most people look for advice. Um, and oftentimes they just want to, it's kind of like a doctor's second opinion. People aren't going to really take all that seriously. They're more consider. I've had a lot of people. My sister-in-law used to do that to a lot to me and other people. She'd ask five of us our opinion on something and then make a decision, which isn't bad. It's like a brain trust thing, but it can become frustrating for the brain trust because you don't ever see your advice really get taken. Um, it's flattering that your opinion's being asked. That's kind of where I find myself. I'm similar to her in that way, where I want opinions. I think probably I should start saying in that situation, hey, I just want your opinion. I'm gonna probably make a decision that down the line. I could kind of hedge it so people don't get so upset. My brother's probably the best example of this. like he's confronted, I've gotten upset with him because I'll start giving him advice because kind of in this game setting will happen. And then it's like, the way I say it, admittedly, I'll start getting annoyed and have a tone because I can tell it's not going through. Um, but it's actually been good training for me because now like recently his tar his car got towed for the second time and he told me about it and I just burst out laughing because it was so ridiculous because we'd already had conversations about the first time this happened, albeit it's for a different reason, but it's kind of the same thread. And the old me, instead of laughing, would have probably initiated this game or jump, but I just laughed. And I remember, people have done the ridiculous laugh in my face in years past. And I get it now. It was like a natural reaction. I wasn't trying to be mean because he said something like, well, it might be funny to you. It's not to me, blah, blah, blah. But I get it because when someone's being so ridiculous, you didn't even think about it. It was just so ridiculous. You just burst out laughing. And it happened to me too. A neighbor downstairs who he kind of became an alcoholic Vicodin addict because he hurt his back. And he said something where he was kind of being a sugar daddy, and then the girl was saying, he's the only one, and this and that, and she was living with him, and of course she was cheating, and I just kind of burst out laughing when he was telling me about how she was cheating on him, and he responded the same way of like, that's not funny. Likely to have that response when people have kind of like a ridiculous problem going on. And later in this chapter too, um, there's a woman that's part of the unemployment unit and people are having a hard time getting jobs and all the other reps are like trying to get them work and this and that and she just starts asking a simple question. It's kind of like what are you going to do about things? When she get on a call with them, all she would ask them is like, how many jobs have you applied to this week? So it's not advice, it's not berating them, just asking a non-emotional logical question that needs an answer, right? Because if like for her work and she needs to know, she actually needs to write that metric down, but it saves all the back and forth. It saves all the game playing. And people in her department above her got complaints about her. The unemployed people were all mad at her, but she had the best numbers. She was getting the most people employed again because she was putting the onus back on them, the accountability back on them. And eventually she got fired because she was too hard on them and she was ruining the system because the unemployment office gets money to help support the so it's kind of like the solution to people's problems is not to be the advice giver. I really found that I've wasted a lot of time with friends and family over the year giving advice. It's happened with a friend too. He had like a lot of, he could probably be a national master for chess. And I had this hour-long conversation with him about it, and nothing went with it at that point. This was years ago, and it really taught me like you can't push a rope. If the person's not going to move, you're just wasting your breath. You can't have anyone do anything, even if you see something. Um, I'm starting to reinvest in my own life. I remember my ex-wife used to say that I'm like too helpful for other people. I'm not taking care of my own life. I'm like prioritizing other people. And I find like the advice giving, you waste all this time talking with people and then your stuff doesn't get done. Your laundry doesn't get done. Your task that you meant to get done doesn't get done. Um, I kind of get it now why in like business, I remember one time I was in a meeting and this client had scheduled the meeting and me and a CFO type were waiting for them to show up. And 10 minutes in, he was like, all right, well, they're not here. I'm leaving. And I'm like, oh, but I'm like, oh no, but like this is important. Like I know they're late, but like we need to get this done. And he was like, I gotta go. And that always stuck with me because it showed like boundaries in this sort of situation. And it's kind of like showing reasonability. It's putting the accountability back on them without having a big argument. Because if you're going to be pissed off if they show up 20 minutes late. I remember one time like I had a female friend back in high school. Her name was Valencia, and I remember me and another friend were at a restaurant and she was late and she showed up like an hour or more late and we were like waiting there because we didn't want to be rude and she's like, "Oh, I'm coming." And like I looked back on that and I should have just left after 10, 15 minutes. Like if she's not going to be here, like let's just leave. Like we're already done with our food. Let's just leave. And I feel like in life with these games people play, in the book talks about this. It's kind of misogynistic. It's you have to trudge through a lot to get the gems, but there's some major gems in there. And you really see that a lot of times people are unconsciously playing these games. Like I was shocked after reading this book where I saw myself playing this game, the yes, but game, where this friend that's wise is giving me good advice, but I'm like, I already made my decision, right? But I had mentioned the problem, right? So I now I kind of see why people say kind of like don't talk about your problems because it's like it invites this game to get played. Sometimes I'll be on a YouTube video and some I know the answer. They're younger than 20 years younger than me and they're having a problem, especially in the workplace. I remember I was going to write a response and then I realized if my own brother isn't going to take my advice, this random guy on the idiot on the internet isn't going to either. That's what I've kind of found too. It's like the people closest to you won't even take the advice. Even in the workplace too, it's kind of like stating the obvious problem. If you tell your managers the problem, obviously there's a sometimes there's a reason why they're ignoring it. And my brother again, I remember when I've been giving advice on things, eventually the true plan will come out. The true logic as to why they're not taking the advice will eventually come out. And that helped me realize often your advice is falling on deaf ears because they already have most people already have a game plan on how they're going to handle something. Like if this happens, then I'll do this kind of thing. They have those kind of loosely held mental plans. And so you giving advice isn't really going to help them. That's kind of why too I don't like to loan money to anyone anymore. I did that once with a guy. His name was Rowdy back in post college. I lent him $200 and I only had 2 grand saved at the time. So I was like 10% of my savings. And we'd been friends for probably like 5 years at that point. And so I thought I'd get paid back. I eventually did, but it took a lot of berating to get the money back. I even got him a job. Um, and I look back on it and his dad had paid for his college. His dad felt like I'm not giving you another dime because, he did enough for him. So he was using me as a way to get the fund to get the job. He needed $200 to get his guard card to be a security guard. I got him that job. So I inserted myself into his life to help him, and it just became a problem for me. And once I got the money back, I just ended the friendship. There was other problems, but it kind of showed me like you try to no good deed goes unpunished. I don't help anyone anymore. I don't loan money at all anymore. Um, I don't give advice anymore. Somehow you get in an argument with people because you trigger them with something you say. I had a taxi driver drive me home once. He didn't speak the whole time, and it was kind of awkward at the end. And when I was getting out, he was like, I didn't talk because I said something like, "Oh, it was a pretty quiet ride, haha." Like, it was almost awkward. Didn't even say hello when I sat down. And he was kind of honest. And he's like, I don't talk because somehow I upset people. If I say so, somehow some argument comes up, and I've kind of noticed that as I've gotten along in life, I try to say very little. I save this channel for my too much talking. I don't say much in real life anymore because somehow an argument happens. You say something, and I'm sure anyone that's been in a relationship, especially as a man, you know, men and women are men are from Mars, women are from Venus, sort of thing. We think differently. And one of my sister-in-laws, the youngest one, said something like, I'll never understand how men think. She said this at probably 18, 19. It really was wise beyond her years. I feel the same. I'll never understand how women think. So you're more likely with the opposite sex to say something wrong, especially. So men talking to women, I kind of find, the chances of you misspeaking are high. So I've learned to, I see why people do the small talk, how's the weather? It's just a way not to somehow get into trouble, but also kind of show that you're paying attention to her. I get it now. I didn't get it when I was younger. Like, what's this? I don't get this dumb small talk stuff. I get it now. It's like social lubrication without any risk of misspeaking or saying something negative. Like, what did you do this weekend, this last weekend, or what are your plans? You're kind of just talking to kind of get that social lubrication going and not risk upsetting anyone. And maybe it was Machiavelli or somebody said something like, how you judge somebody is what questions they're asking. And I agree with that. I noticed throughout my life, especially when someone's upset at me, the questions that they ask are more important than the answers. Because the question shows what they're thinking more than what they're saying to you, because they're trying to find something out. The question is, why are they asking that? And sometimes they've even pushed back when someone asks me a question that's kind of out of line. I say, "Oh, why do you want to know?" Right? I want them to explain the logic of the question. That usually ends the question if it's kind of out of line. Or they actually have to give a reason as to why, because you're kind of saying when you answer a question with a question like the politicians do, the old joke, answer the effing question. It's like I see there's a point when you do that when someone's trying to game you. And like Carl Jung says, you know, up until you're 40, it's all research. Life begins at 40. I get it now. Even my ex-wife, she made a joke where we were talking and she was talking about dating, where like she's talking to men, like, what are your intentions? Like she's really direct now. And I laugh in a good way because it's like I'm kind of the same now with dating. Because you're not a deer, you're not a newborn deer on shaky legs anymore when you're 40. You kind of know people's BS. You kind of know people have some sort of agenda. Maybe in a relationship, they're a hobosexual, as like I call them. They're trying to move in with you. They're trying to get married. Um, at least on the men's side, sometimes that's happening. Or on the women's side, it's more they're trying to get their body. They're just trying to pump and dump him. And that's kind of what my ex-wife, I think she was basically saying is that she's questioning, why are you interested in me? Like, are you just looking for that? Because a lot of times men are. She's not wrong. And I kind of find the other agendas in dating as well can be the objective, as my brother calls it, where they want a baby and you're good enough. You're not like bad, but you're good enough to have the baby with. They see you're a nice guy, etc. So they're the objective of having that family is what they want, and they can just discard you later. Or casual dating, where for me, that's kind of my goal. Like, by casual, I'm not looking to get married, but I'm looking to, have a long-term. I define casual as we're boyfriend and girlfriend, but we're never living together. We're never getting married, kind of thing. We're never having kids. The world apparently casual dating now is just that um, friends with benefits situation. And I like my ex-wife with the games people play, you can usually suss this out pretty early. And I actually do that just like her before I like get serious with someone. Like after, there's some chemistry before any romantic, second, third base kind of stuff. Let's find out, like, I don't want to waste the time if we're not on the same level. I kind of like to do the sales and qualified leads. Like if you're not cool with what I'm expecting, then we don't have to date. I find usually not wanting to move in, not wanting to get married, not wanting to have kids. When I put that out there right off the bat, um, that drives away most women for me. And I'm sure for my ex, with the early confrontation about like what are you looking for will drive away the guys that are just looking to pump and dump. And that's the thing, with games people play, I think as you get towards 40, you could smell BS a mile away. Doesn't take much to set off my BS meter. And people think they're hiding it, and it's a thin veneer that cracks pretty easily if you put them under a little pressure when they weren't expecting it. And that's the thing, since I'm an honest person, the games can't, I'm kind of immune to the games because I'm direct. In the dating world, people are trying to, I still remember one situation, this girl, I had already said I don't do long distance. She lived up here, and then we were meeting for the kind of date number two. And when we met, one of the first things she's, oh, I'm moving to the Bay Area and I'm up in kind of more the Sacramento area. And she's like, I know you said you didn't do long-term dating, but she didn't tell me because she knew I wouldn't have showed up to the date. So like the games people play, she's trying to be, we hadn't met in person, we just met on like a Zoom call. She was hoping like, oh, I'm so attractive, you're so interested, you'll make an exception for me. So and that's why too, like that was easy to walk away from because if you're not willing to play the dumb games, they show that they're still playing. And that's why, I used to not get, women on their profiles would put like, no games, right? And, the F boy kind of stuff. And, but often people will say that, but that means they want to play games with but you're not supposed to have games with them. Kind of like what happened to me. Like you're playing straight and they're not. It's like a game of poker. You're playing with your hands face up and they aren't. So you're having to trust that they're not playing the game. They try to use a sympathy card to get help from you. They want to move into your house, or they want a loan, or they want something from you. And I find by not offering any kind of financial lifestyle stuff to people, the games become less. Even with my brother, I said, like, don't, we've gotten some arguments over kind of what I've just talked about with the games people play sort of stuff, where it's essentially it's clear to me, um, he's gonna do what he does and never really take serious advice from me. He might take some minor advice, but he's not gonna get his act together from something I'm saying. So I said something to him of like, don't ever ask me for money. Because it's like I like to kind of put that out there, especially with people I care about, because it means kind of like I'm not a safety net for you kind of thing. The question always becomes, if someone's trying to get something from you, that's not enough. You need to know why. That's kind of what I've learned over my 40 years on the planet. I used to think like they're just greedy, they want something. Often you're just a casualty. They're wanting something greater of you. You're a stepping stone to what they want. Like at work, for example, I'm not a manager, but they're kind of trying to make me be a quasi manager, this new guy I was training, and I trained him for my vacation. And I kind of said to them that like he needs a lot of micromanagement. It's not, I kind of gave negative feedback of like, I don't know how he'll do while I'm out. We'll see. And before I left, they're kind of like, well, you need to give feedback in the appropriate format. And, essentially they want me to start building a case potentially. And that's like a management duty. I'm not a manager. I'm just a worker. I said something like, you know, it'll probably be better he works with someone else that has the time to kind of provide that more micromanagement. Essentially, I'm not going to do the management work. And when I got back, they didn't follow up with me because I just kind of said, well, I don't even know what he's working on. So you guys figure it out. I find people respect you more too once they see you politely shut down the games they're playing. Because often they're so used to people playing back with them or falling for it. But when you kind of let them know that something's up, but you're being polite, I find direct arguments don't work so well with this stuff. I've learned that especially at work and with my brother and with other people. I hate being passive aggressive now that I'm more direct. I used to be passive aggressive, but I get the passive aggressiveness in this kind of way because often people can't handle the truth or it's going to create more arguments. I often find now I put the action back on the other person. I state, even at work, I'll state, you know, given X, I'm going to do Y. If you're going to if you're going to do Z, I can do W instead. Like I'm willing to change course if you're going to do something else. So I kind of put the ball in their court for what they want to do, and I state my boundaries. And I kind of find with the games people play, it's very similar. To not play the game, you have to step outside the game. It's kind of like the casino. The only way to win is not to go in. It's rigged, right? The house always wins. So when you go into a casino, it's a losing proposition. You're go you might win in the short term, but in the long term, I think most of the games have like a 2% at least edge. So you're gonna lose for every $100 you lose put in, you're gonna lose $2 over the lifetime. So the only way is either to hit and run or to not play. And I kind of find with the games people play for your peace, you should play as little as humanly possible. Sometimes you're forced to hit and run. You're at work, you have to play politics a little bit to get what you want or just survive even. Because, by not being political, that's a political choice. You have to play the game a little bit. You can't play with unfortunately in life, I found you can't play with your cards face up because everyone else's cards are covered. So when you play with your cards face up, you're just like, it's like having a turn signal on the freeway. Everyone knows what you're going to do before you do it. You don't have any element of surprise. There's no question of what you may or may not do. You want to leave a little bit of worry for other people. And you don't want narcissists and kind of dark triad types that try to push you around. Because if you're playing too an honest of a game, you're giving away all your thoughts. You're you're ripe for manipulation. That's why the empaths and stuff kind of attract the narcissist. You're too naive. And so you attract someone that looks at you as an easy target. It's kind of like even equivalent if the bums outside of a grocery store, even by responding no sorry, you're showing there's like a little bit of hope. I have found it's just better to just walk by and pretend you don't even hear it. Just give them the stone wall. It's kind of unfortunately in life, it's like kind of like women talk about where guys don't give up by like being nice and giving hello is an invitation for a lot more versus just having the cold shoulder. And it's kind of freeing now, honestly, not giving advice. It's I don't have to invest anymore. And it's actually, I can save, I can take my own advice, or I can go in that energy, I can go ask others for advice when I actually need some help. That's the thing, it's like an energy vampire thing. You waste your time trying to help everyone else with their problems. They're going to do what they're going to do regardless of what you say. So it's a fool's errand to give anyone else advice, unless you're being paid for it. That's different. If someone's willing to pay you for your time for the advice, then it has value. People never value free.